And we are live. Welcome to Team Tank Podcast, episode 8. I can't believe we're already on 8 with all our recaps and all that stuff. We're going strong here. I am on the road. I am in Vegas. I am a weekend individual after a few days here. We have a guest with us today, Jabari Davis of Basketball Insiders. He used to write for Laker Nation. He's a very knowledgeable basketball fan and writer and a kind of a mentor of mine. So I really appreciate you jumping on with us. How are you doing, Jabari?
I'm doing great, and you know what? I'll make sure to slide you that 10, for saying those positive things about me. I appreciate it.
Cool. I'll send over my Vimeo account or whatever. We also have with us Harrison. I can't stop thinking about Gary with all this Gary Nation stuff that's going on. That's
None of us can.
Apparently, his mom is on Twitter. We have with us Harrison of Silver Screen and Roll. How are you doing, Harrison?
Pretty good. Can't complain. I'm not gonna slide you a 10 because you got my name wrong. So.
That's my bad. I'm telling you, Vegas. I can't come back here at least until Summer League. We lost Jabari here for a second.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of chat for a bit.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess we'll get us going here. We just finished the All-Star break. Harrison, what would you say are your major takeaways from this past weekend and as we head into the trade deadline?
Zach LaVine brought the dunk contest back, as cliche as that is to say. That was definitely the most fun I've had watching that in a couple years. I think but overall, the biggest takeaway from the weekend is, there were no Lakers involved in any of the events, and that's that does not happen that often. If you look back in NBA history, the team always has an all-star or at least a rising star or something, but to have no one in any of the events is obviously a little different than most fans are probably used to. And Randall would have been in there if he hadn't had his injury. Obviously, he would have been in the Rising Stars game. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. And I think Clarkson, if he would have, started, if Byron would have known that he was on the team or whatever, a couple weeks earlier, then he probably would have made the Rising Stars game. Because he kind of fits for that. He would have been a lot of fun to watch in that environment. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. I don't think any Los Angeles basketball players were playing in the weekend's festivities, right? Because Blake Griffin was hurt. Chris Paul. Did he make the team?
Yeah, he was on the All-Star team.
Oh, cool. All right, never mind then. Jabari, before you, we lost you again.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say with this All-Star thing, I'm not gonna quite say that LaVine brought the dunk contest back. I mean, I thought they could have had more dunkers. That thing, it was over in a blink,
I'd rather have it like that though than stretching too long. There have been there have been a couple years where where they have the unlimited attempts or whatever, where it just takes too long. I like the 3 attempts and you're done. If you can't finish it in 3 dunks, I liked that a lot. And they got rid of the stupid teams thing that no one liked. I don't know who came up with that. I feel bad for just trashing someone's idea, but, that was horrible. I don't know why they did that.
I mean, the 3-point contest was great. I loved the change they made to that skills challenge, how they have them going head-to-head.
Yeah, that was, I agree. That was so much more fun.
Yeah.
It was a bummer that some of these guys, I don't know why they sign up if they're just going to try and look cool and they aren't going to go all out. My greatest wish for that contest is, they need to get, they need to have big men do it. It needs to be, my dream field is, Robert Sacre, JaVale McGee, Big Baby Davis, and, I don't know who the fourth is, but, I think that would be amazing to watch the big guys try and do the same things.
You left Kendrick Perkins out of there.
There you go, Kendrick Perkins.
Scott Brooks is so pissed at you for leaving out his bugaboo.
He needs his All-Star break with all the minutes that he plays.
If they could just have a contest of like setting screens, Kendrick Perkins would win in a landslide. He just stand there and get in everybody's way, and then brute when they call illegal ones on him. So that'd be perfect.
Or him and Boozer could have a push-off fouls contest.
Yeah.
Just bring in small children from the crowd and just like who can push them farther.
Right. Yeah. That would. I'd pay to watch that one. And then why not take it the next step and like have them spin around a bat, with their head down, get them all dizzy, let them have a couple drinks before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like.
The NBA, we could call it like the Jose Cuervo skills challenge, and they have to like take a shot before, before every like change of skill.
Well, I don't know if you saw the clip of Isaiah Thomas and Patrick Beverly during the Celebrity All-Star game, but
man, yes,
they were interviewed. They were interviewed and we're not in a correct state of mind. I'll say that. Is that fair?
I would 100% agree. Kyle Lowry looked like he didn't know where he was. Like
I'm not. This is obviously some reckless speculation here, but they not sober. No way they were sober.
I mean, I feel like if you say that they were sober, that's almost more of an insult to them.
Yeah. Kyle Lowry and Isaiah Thomas and Patrick Beverly were allegedly sober at the game. Whoa! I resent that comment, sir.
Yeah. We're just not willing to say what it was.
Yeah. Man, they were just all sorts of giggling. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if one of them pulled out like a bag of Doritos for the interview, which is
that would have been awesome.
It was salsa verde. Jabari, we're having some technical difficulties. You doing all right over there?
Yeah, I'm good. Is my camera up? I was on my cell phone, but it kept on resetting the phone, so I fired up the laptop.
Yeah, no, your camera's good. Just kind of want to either lift your face up or adjust your camera down.
There you go.
A little bit.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect. All right. So we're good.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all. We were talking about the All-Star festivities not involving any Lakers and only Chris Paul. The state of Los Angeles basketball has taken a few hits, I would say.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, it's due to circumstance this year. Obviously, with Blake missing time and with the Lakers just being in the state that they're in, it's not necessarily a good look with Chris Paul being the only representative. But I expect that to regulate itself at least with Blake in Blake's case, next year.
Yeah, I just made myself feel better when I thought about the fact that there were no Lakers there. That future Laker Russell Westbrook decided to go off on everybody that game. That was fun to watch.
Hey, Snoop's recruiting.
Yeah, I can see that. I've tried to stay away from the future Laker, hashtag because it seems as though it's been applied to just about everybody. Honestly, Harrison, it may be applied to you if you show some range one day. But hey, look, Russell Westbrook. If there's anyone out there that to start recruiting, he would certainly be one of them.
Yeah, I would. I mean, this is kind of tangential here, but I could totally see him and Durant both saying, this is enough and enough is enough. I mean, you kind of see it in their I mean, it's not directly correlated, but how they're interacting with the media. They aren't happy.
No.
They don't appear to be very happy. And I don't know if it's a direct result of how they've been, treated there in OKC, not bringing back players and trading away guys and all that stuff. They have to be pretty frustrated there, and this lashing out that's been going on is pretty interesting to me. And Harrison, what would you say are the chances of? I would put them at least at 50-50 of those guys sticking around. There's as good a chance of them leaving, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put odds on any individual teams, but I think it's probably 50-50 that they stay or leave at this point. I mean, I think this year the biggest thing that has to be upsetting to them is like Harden is in the MVP conversation. Like he's one of the two, like along with Stephen Curry, is like one of the two like mainstream favorites. And so like that really has to hurt when you could have had that guy on your team lining up with you every night, and your owners just said we aren't willing to pay for this.
And it hurts even more considering his quote unquote replacement to Dion Waiters. That can't help.
That's a pretty steep drop off. Well,
I mean, the one thing I guess his effort in calling for the ball is right up there with anybody else in the league, I would say. But beyond that, I don't know if he brings any actual talent compared to James Harden.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that he does as well as James Harden. I think most would probably agree with me.
Nope. So, Jabari, the similar or a familiar topic here that we tend to cover with guests is your thoughts on the actual, taboo term tanking. How it doesn't work, how it does work, all that stuff. What are your thoughts on the Lakers appearing to go this route of doing whatever they can to secure that draft pick?
Well, my stance on it isn't necessarily the most popular, but I'm more of a realist on it. If they were in a position that they could be competitive, I would say, look, no, you shouldn't go that route. Not necessarily because it's the wrong thing to do, but simply because it wouldn't be the smartest thing to do. They are not a competitive team. You look at this roster; it's clear that they're not. Mitch Kupchak came out, last week and acknowledged that. But he acknowledged something that all of us could see from day one, or if not from day one, about a week in, everybody could tell that this team, simply wasn't on par with other rosters. So at the end of the day, there are folks that are going to hold on to that. You're like, oh, no, the Lakers don't tank. We don't do this. The history, all of that, rah. Hey, and I'm all for having pride within the history of your franchise, but you also have to be smart about it. This is not a good roster. You're much closer to the bottom of the league than you are to the top of the league. So so you may as well go ahead and bottom out, which it appears that they are going ahead and doing so.
And when you talk about bottoming out, I mean, we're a couple days away from the trade deadline, right? So we're staring at it right in the face. And obviously the Lakers have been mentioned in the Goran Dragic sweepstakes, but I don't understand how they could possibly be buyers right now. You have to sell off your assets to bring in draft picks, right, Harrison?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just like really quick on the tanking thing, if I could just, I was telling you a little bit before the call, kind of my thoughts on this, but my biggest like issue with the term tanking and kind of people's misconception of it is like when a front office or a player will defend it and say, oh no, this team isn't tanking because the players are still trying really hard to win. When we talk about tanking, I know myself and Anthony, and I don't know about you, Jabari, but when we talk about tanking, we're talking about the front office putting together a non-competitive team in order to acquire draft picks. We aren't talking about like Nick Young is going out there and shooting like 30 whatever percent from the field on purpose just because he wants to lose. Like we're talking about like a team that is put together with the goal of being competitive, not really in mind.
Absolutely, and just to piggyback that, I can tell you personally, like I've talked to players, don't even mention it to them. They're not the ones. So I fully agree. It's not a matter of the players. It's not like they're playing with sweet Georgia Brown in the like in the background,
Yeah.
like on purpose. I probably just dated myself because everyone out there is like, what is that? That's what is that the theme song for the Globetrotters?
Yeah.
No,
Right.
it's not a matter of that. It's simply organizations strategically tank. Players do not. So fully agree with you, Harrison.
And I mean, the last little bit I want to talk about this too is that at the end of the day, the players aren't going to be around for the rebuilding process in its entirety.
Yeah, they don't. And then that's also like that pick. They don't have any incentive to tank because that pick's a guy that's going to come take their job potentially. Depending on who they are in the franchise. Like the players are not tanking. No one is saying that the players are trying to lose. So that's like I think the most aggravating anti-tanking argument, because it's just not like a valid, like no one's saying that that's what's happening, that the players are trying to lose.
Right.
I think if you no, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I think if you're the Lakers, you go about it exactly as they've been doing it. Look, if you're not married to Jeremy Lin moving forward, which, you know what, to be honest with you, I don't see any reason why they would be, there's no need for him to play, you know, like the bulk of the minutes. You may as well see what you've got there with Jordan Clarkson. If you're not married to, you know, building a franchise around Jordan Hill moving forward, which it's clear that they are not, and, you know, which, you know, quite frankly, they shouldn't be, you may as well see what Tariq Black has, what you might be able to get out of Ryan Kelly or get for Ryan Kelly. You know, people can hold on to the anti-tanking move, mode, or, you know, whatever. You don't want to call it a tank. This is exactly the path they should be on. They should not be, you know, looking to add Goran Dragic before or a player of his ilk, before the deadline. They should be looking to, you know, actually maximize as many of these guys as assets and see what you can actually get for guys.
Right, and I mean, I think actually wrote about, you know, the Lakers potentially, you know, trading for Goran Dragic last week, and how devastating that could be. So let's say hypothetically, because right now Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that they want at least a first-round pick and a player, you know, capable of potentially being an all-star, right? So let's say the Lakers trade away. I guess the closest thing to the potential all-star would be whom? Jordan Hill, maybe? They don't have it.
Wait, is that actually what he's reporting they're asking for? That's insane. He's a free agent at the end of the season.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, just imagine, though, that the Lakers trade their Houston pick, Jordan Hill, for Goran Dragic, who could turn around and make the Lakers, you know, potentially better. They slip down in the tank rankings, right? And then they lose their Phoenix pick because Goran Dragic helps helps the team, makes the team better. And now all of a sudden, you've now traded all of your assets to acquire you could have gotten via free agency for nothing. That would be devastating. What would you? I mean, that has to be doomsday, right, Jabari? You there?
Look, I never, especially when it's something that I have no control over. But I can tell you, I don't anticipate. That would literally shock me if they went that route. All of those things also combine, all of that, and you would have no guarantee that Dragic would be there moving forward. So with all of those factors out there, I don't see that taking place. I mean, like, I'm not going to question I'm not going to question Woj. Nobody questions him. I'm not saying that somebody didn't put that out there. It would just shock me if it actually came from the Lakers. Speaking of which, also just quickly on that, you remember the report about, like, oh, they're willing to offer him 4 years, $80 million. That would also shock me too. Not necessarily that they'd be willing to do it, but the Lakers, like, for all of us that are familiar with the way that they do business, they don't put terms out publicly. Once a deal is done, so they're not going to do it, preemptively. So, whenever it comes to rumors and things like this, I always look at who does it make the most sense for, and most times it's for agents and the players themselves.
Right, and that's exactly the thing there. It's kind of tough because you're reading between lines, and it's hard to speculate in an article about what a reporter might have been told and the reasons behind being told that or sent that message, right? But if you're the Suns, and you can float out that the Lakers are willing to pay this guy $80 million, or if you're Goran Dragic's agent and you're willing to say that the Lakers are willing to pay this guy that much, it knocks up his asking price, right? So with the Suns, they say that they want all these assets in return for him because they want to re-sign him. Even if they do want to re-sign him, which I'm not sure, but even if they do want to re-sign him, if they admit that they don't anticipate re-signing him, there goes all their leverage in any kind of trade negotiation, right? And I always, it's tricky. I mean, Adrian he has to be the best in the business at what he does, right? I can't think of anybody better as far as breaking news, but that is a tough sector to make your living in, right? Harrison, what would your thoughts be on the whole business of breaking news and stuff like that. I mean, is that something that you'd be even interested in trying to do? I mean, it's got to
Oh
be.
yeah, I mean, but somebody's got to hire me. I mean, I got to get my college degree first. Like, I don't have any sources right now, so you know, that's something that interests me. But I think the biggest thing with it is you really have to like be a critical thinker when you're reading these reports. And it's like Jabari said, like you have to think about like what information's being put out there, who it helps. Like you know, for example, with the Dragic thing, like him saying the Lakers don't release terms, and he's right about that. So you're trying to think of like where this report is coming from. And I think most of the time it comes down to an agent or a player or you know whatever, and because uh, these reports don't get like told to the reporters just like for fun. Like these players or agents or GMs or whoever's putting it out there, they don't just do it because they're like, oh, you know, the fans deserve to be informed. They have an angle for giving the reporter that information.
Go ahead, Jabari.
Also, keep in mind what took place right after that Goran Dragic information was released. All of a sudden, you know, Ryan McDonough, or it appeared as though he was willing to part ways with Isaiah Thomas. To Harrison's point, about being kind of like using your critical reasoning, your critical thinking with this. What it seems to me is this is Dragic's people trying to put it out there like, look, I like Phoenix, I want to stay here, but I have options that are out there. If especially having he's played the good soldier for the most part in terms of like going along with Hornacek's 3-guard lineup, but there's no doubt whatsoever that Dragic and maybe even Bledsoe and those guys would like to have like a more defined role or a more established role, one that you don't have to split between having so many guys. There's so much redundancy at the position. So, in my opinion, honestly, this was probably put out there by Dragic's people in order to pressure the Suns in order to make a decision.
Right, and I was always interested in how it worked. I kind of knew defensively they were going to struggle with that 3-guard lineup like that. It hasn't worked. I don't to what they were expecting it to do. I think Hornacek has been hesitant to use it for long stretches, and they haven't used it as much as he'd have liked. I believe. So yeah, I mean there will be a move made. I don't think Dragic makes it past the trade deadline as a Sun, and whoever trades for him has to realize, man, there's some risk involved in trading assets for a guy that could bolt in free agency anyway. Which if not the Lakers, I know Houston has been floated out there as a team interested. The team I'm kind of wondering, what about Detroit? They lost Brandon Jennings, right? If they bring in Goran Dragic and they only have to send, the contracts and the draft picks at work, now all of a sudden that becomes, I'd say, a top 4 or 5 team in the East, in my opinion. What do you think, Bart?
Well, I usually avoid like the hypotheticals like this, but I'll say it would certainly help. It would certainly help. But my question to you is, what assets would they be able to push out? Like you're not going to just get Dragic for nothing. Phoenix is not going to, with as many suitors that would realistically be out there. Phoenix is not just going to give him up for a ball of yarn and a pocket full of lint. So you're going to have to give to get. But hypothetically speaking, I mean, of course, Van Gundy has done very well with point guards in the past. All you have to do is be able to knock down shots and be able to create off the dribble, and you're going to play well in the Stan Van Gundy system. So, hypothetically speaking, that would be great. I'm just not so sure that they're going to be the ones that end up with him. Houston, and again, I'm not sure who they'd be looking to get rid of. But if I were worried, to say I were the Lakers, worried about not being able to even bid on him in the offseason, Houston would probably be the team that I'd be most concerned with.
Right. That's I mean, at the end of the day, it is purely hypothetical until something happens, and these next 48 hours are going to be really interesting. Really interesting. All right, so let's get into a few questions here from our readers and our listeners. AJ Taylor at AJ starting 5 asks a interesting question here. Why does Kobe think they should build around his corpse, Jabari?
Oh God.
Oh, Harrison doesn't want to take this. No. Wow. Well, the simple answer is this, because that's who Kobe Bryant is. That's part of what makes him, what has made him great. All along is the belief within himself that look, I'm just a shot away. I'm just like an opportunity away. I'm just a couple rotation pieces away. Now look, everybody else in the room probably sees the reality here, but I can't fault Kobe Bryant as on a personal level for wanting to to remain competitive. So.
Well, what do you think, Harrison? I mean, it makes me a little nervous that the Lakers might be rebuilding around a dead person, but what do you think?
The Walking Dead's one of the biggest hit shows on TV, so maybe they're just trying to get their ratings up. Kobe, it's more fun to win than to lose. So, I don't blame him for wanting to be competitive and not caring, what the Lakers draft pick status is or any of that stuff. And, I also can't blame a guy for taking as much money as he can get. It's easy for us to say, oh, you should have taken less from, from our webcams over the internet. But, if somebody offered us a raise at our jobs, we're going to take it. We aren't going to worry that means that they can't hire, a different writer or something to help out the site overall. We're going to take that pay raise.
Well, and I think, too, like Jabari said, Kobe's special because he thinks of himself in that manner, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the only reason he's successful. I mean, obviously, super talented and everything that comes along with it. And I also think Kobe doesn't want to go off into the twilight of his career, surrounded by Nick Young and Robert Sacre. At the end of the day, he wants, he sees the finish line of his career, and he says, "Wait, I don't want to go out like this. This is terrible," And when he says, when we talk about rebuilding around him, he also said in a previous interview that he would have loved to play with Michael Jordan. And I would say that when he says that, it's kind of him speaking to that next generation of players, say, hey, I would have loved, I'm in this hypothetical, I'm the Michael Jordan here. I would have loved to play with Michael Jordan. You guys should come play here with me. If need be, I can take that second fiddle role, and we can make a run out of it. That, seems some reading between the lines there, but Jabari, could you see that being a message he's trying to send?
I think I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever. As soon as I saw that quote, as soon as I read it, I was like, yeah, hey, I would have loved it. Wink.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, if you're Kobe, that's really what you have to rely upon at this point. You have to rely upon being able to sell it as, hey, look, I just want an opportunity to win. I just want one last ride, one last, hurrah. Who knows whether that's, whether that's even realistic at this point. But again, no one really can fault him for wanting it. You can question, you can question some of the methodology along the way. Like even though I can't fault him for taking as much money as he did, I can say, well, Kobe, that if you take this amount, there's at least a considerable chance that this is going to take place. You know what I mean? But but that's water under the bridge at this point. What's done is done. That's even with all of that being the case, what Kobe's going to want to go out swinging. He's not going to want to go out limping.
And I think too. I mean, we talk about building around Kobe, but they aren't anymore. I don't think. They're going to draft whoever the best player is in the draft. They're going to sign whichever best free agent they can pick up because they just need assets. Period. At this point. And if Kobe happens to fit into that, great. If not, he's only here for another year, and you try to make a run with it. And then when he comes off the books in 2016, you're talking about $25 extra million that they're going to have to spend. And then you're also talking about another, $30 million when the cap raises like crazy because of the TV deal money. We're talking about, something that, aren't necessarily going to go hand in hand with this rebuild. All right, next question comes here from Joseph A. Hogan at jcity ... I can't see his full handle here, but What player do you, Jabari, hope the Lakers end up with on draft day?
Jahlil Okafor. I mean, I'm not going to mince words about this. I think the kid's the real deal, and I shouldn't even call him a kid. But when I first saw him play 2 years ago at the Adidas Nations tournament, they have it down here every year, down in Garden Grove. Yeah, I was impressed by him then, and he was complete. He wasn't anywhere near as good as he was, as he is at this point. I'm not looking for him to hit the ground running in terms of being an instant superstar, but in terms of being like a guy that I could see being a legitimate all-star level player at the next level for several years, for many years. He's that guy. He just really is.
What do you think about this comparison, Harrison? Hey, it rhymed. You have Jahlil Okafor, who is extremely talented on the offensive side of the ball, right? He's an okay to decent athlete, I would say. I was that one play where it was a tip dunk that he just went off flat-footed. That kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't think he had that kind of in him. And then his one criticism consistently has been his effort and ability on the defensive side of the ball. That sounds a lot like Brook Lopez before he went through all of his injury issues. And
that's scary.
Well, before he started getting hurt, though, he was putting up some really good numbers. For whatever reason, he decided he didn't want to rebound anymore. But as far as the offensive side of the ball, he was one of the more skilled big men in the league. What do you think about that? Is there another player out there that you think he could be compared to? I've heard Al Jefferson too.
Yeah, for me, it's like it's hard to compare players. It's I don't know that I like comparing players to other players because everyone is like a little bit different. And this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I was like talking with a couple people this weekend. Like I just don't like the Frankensteining of prospects. Like he's Dwight Howard with a jump shot, or he's just like putting together I understand why we do it. It's like to make it an easier description for people to understand. But I mean, the Brook Lopez compare, I don't think it's a terrible one. No, I think it's okay.
And is there anybody else? I mean, obviously, I'm not sure the Lakers are going to be bad enough or good enough, depending on your inclination here with tanking, to draft Okafor. So who would be next on your draft board, Jabari?
Well, I mean, again, it's a discussion that you really have to have, once you see where everything shakes, how things shake out, or shape up, I guess. But I'm a big fan of D'Angelo Russell. I'm intrigued by Moutier. I'm very intrigued, but I'd like to see more of him. I'd like to see actual footage. Not in any way to place it, not in any way to place him in the same category, place this in the same category as with Dante Exum. But I'm a little bit, wary when it comes to if I haven't been able to watch you play, several games. But I'm sure they'll take care of that, through the workout process. There's a lot of talent out there, but again, all of it is speculative until we find out, what position they end up in.
I was able to. I think it was Drew Garrison that posted the Moutier highlight, but that was incredible. There was some of his tape playing there in the Chinese league that he's playing in, and my one worry was that it looked like everybody on the floor was playing defense like they were in foul trouble. But you saw the ability there. He found the right looks on passes. He showed some athleticism out there in the open court, all that good stuff. My only worry is if the Lakers are in that 3, 4, 5 spot and they have more of a known entity in front of them, I would hope that they would go with that over the speculation that is Moutier, because they can't afford a miss, with really their only draft pick over the next couple of years. Next question, unless you had something to add there, Harrison.
No, I think you guys got it.
Cool. Next one here comes from @AfaBrain. He has come on with us here before. He's our resident capologist from down under. Do you think, Jabari, we should offer a contract to KJ McDaniels or Middleton from Milwaukee? If you had to choose one of those two players, who would you go with? There is a
Talking
lot.
about Chris Middleton, you know, I won't lie to you. I haven't, you know, like I've seen that Middleton has had a, you know, like a good or a decent statistical year, or he's had a couple games, or a couple stretches that have impressed some people. I have watched KJ McDaniels, a lot, so I'm a bit biased in this. I like KJ McDaniels a lot. You know, I like athletic wings. You know, he's still, clearly a project on the offensive end, but that's not impossible to gain. That's not impossible to work on, but defensively and athletically and what he can do along the perimeter, if I'm the Lakers, you have to look at guys like that.
I don't know if anybody else came up with this, but my nickname for KJ has been KJ McDamn, y'all. When he makes crazy plays and stuff, this is well documented on the podcast. I am a huge KJ McDaniels. It's a Man Crush Tuesday, I think, is how I started that. Harrison, between Middleton and KJ, which way are you leaning?
I'd probably also lean KJ, just because he's younger. I think he's probably going to be cheaper, although I could be wrong on that. Yeah, there's just more room for growth. I don't know how many years younger than Middleton he is, but there's just more room for growth there, I think. And I don't think that Milwaukee, trying to be competitive right now, is going to let Middleton go. I think McDaniels may potentially be more gettable, depending on what the Sixers are trying to do next year.
That's interesting. I was actually going to go the other way and say that Middleton might be attainable, because they also would have to match a big offer for Brandon Knight, I imagine, this offseason.
Actually, that's a good point.
Either way, though, I think we're all in agreement here that KJ you can't coach athleticism, right? Like, I remember for a while there with Luke Walton, I always thought, man, if he could just get like half a step faster, or just, and it's like it never happened, because you can't coach that kind of thing. You can't learn that, and with KJ starting from there and what he can do on the defensive side, he's legitimately one of the better perimeter defenders I've seen here in the league this year, and he's so young. That's tough to stay away from. Next question comes from Wagner S. Bronco. Harrison, what would you say is the worst case scenario for the offseason?
Lose the draft pick, don't sign anyone in free agency. I think pretty much the doomsday scenarios that have been covered. I don't know. But past that, I don't know what. Like, Randall ends up having to have another surgery because his rehab didn't go the way that it was supposed to, or he's not ready by summer league. I can't think of much things worse than that. Losing the pick is like the worst thing that could possibly happen, I think. That's the most important thing, is like keeping that top 5 pick. So if they lose that, it's already like the worst Lakers offseason.
As a follow-up to that question, at GoTheDistance49 asked, what happens if you win too much and fall back in the lotto? Will you all weep uncontrollably? I shed a tear when I first read that tweet, to answer your question. Jabari, what would you say? We talked about the doomsday scenario. I would add to that like they signed Kobe to a 5-year, $150 million contract. Like that'd be a bad addition there. But Jabari, what would you say is now the best case scenario for the Lakers?
Best case scenario is you trade guys like Lynn, maybe Ed Davis, and I know folks, he's a fan favorite, but if you can get something for him, to work with in this upcoming draft, you have to do that. Jordan Hill, if you can convince a team that is, hip flexor is strong enough to, that he could be a productive part of a postseason run. You move guys like that, pick up as many, assets and, as many additional draft picks as you can get. Not necessarily with the intent to use all of them, but then you have things that you can package, in or around the draft, or even after the draft, or obviously, or even on draft day. You end up with a top pick. You hope that it's the best pick that you can possibly get. You bring back Randall, as healthy and as strong as he can possibly be. You have Kobe Bryant on the books for one more year, but you're returning with Clarkson having played a considerable amount of action in his rookie year. hopefully building upon that, like in year two. Whomever you pick up in the draft, and a new and a hopefully new and improved Julius Randle. It's not that doesn't scream championship next year, but what it does scream is hope, and that's something that Lakers fans, and it sounds crazy to say, haven't had over the last couple seasons.
And I mean, at the end of the day, that hope is something that drives teams, to being able to do something, more sustainable. Right, that idea of, all right, this has been a rough stretch, probably the roughest stretch in franchise history, but there is a way to rebuild out of this. That's the point of these podcasts here. The message is, as bad as the Lakers have been, if they just go through 30 more games of this, if they endure 30 more games and go over 30, there's a really good chance that they could come out of this with hope, and that should be the point here. All right, next question comes from fellow podcaster Matt Vazin. He asks, Jabari, if you were the GM of the Lakers, what's the first thing you would do? I'm going to go ahead and say, if it were me, I'd fight Dan Gilbert, but go ahead, Jabari.
Jim, kind of what I just said. To be honest with you, I'd be exploring any and all deals that can improve this team moving forward. I'd look to package something with a contract if necessary. Whatever it takes, honestly, whatever it takes in order to get them into a better position. Not just for the next couple of weeks, but for the next couple of months and the next couple of years. That's what they should be doing. And a lot of it has to do with clearing out. I don't want to call it dead weight, but clearing out a lot of the guys on the roster that you're not planning on moving forward with.
Now, we haven't heard really any of this, and it's hard for me to even say it, but Mitch deserves some criticism here for his lack of effectiveness trading away these assets, right, and getting something in return when people walk. How do you have Pau Gasol on your roster and Dwight Howard on your roster, have them leave and not get anything in return? And here again, we have Jordan Hill on the roster. We have Ed Davis on the roster, potentially Jeremy Lin. I don't know what those guys could actually fetch realistically. But if they all leave, Ed Davis isn't going to buy back into his player option. He's going to be a free agent. Jordan Hill, might not. He could potentially garner, I would say, at least a first-round pick from the right buyer. If you lose those guys and you don't get something in return, Kupchak deserves a lot of criticism there. What do you think, Harrison?
Well, isn't it all Jim Buss's fault when things go wrong? I thought that's what Magic said. I thought Magic said it was all Jim Buss's fault if we lose guys or if bad things happen. But then if we make a good trade or a good free agent acquisition, then Mitch Kupchak really knows what he's doing. But yeah, I mean, he deserves some criticism for not getting things for guys. I don't know how much because I don't know what the offers were. It didn't sound like the offers for Powell were more than a couple second-round picks, which I mean, they're assets. I'm not saying, you shouldn't take second-round picks, but it almost, I think, would have been more damaging to, the franchise's image if they had traded, this guy that, with not only with fans but with free agents, I think. If this guy that basically, took them to 3 finals, won 2 of them, and you trade him for a couple second-round picks in the last year of his contract, I don't know how good of a look that is. From a recruiting standpoint, although it would have been nice to get something for him. And then Dwight, I can also see why they weren't willing to move him at the trade deadline. They were still trying to fight their way back into a playoff spot. Kobe was playing at a top 5 player level. They still thought that they could do some damage. They didn't know that he was going to tear his Achilles. So, I mean, they do deserve some criticism for it, but I just don't know how much.
Well, what do you think, Jabari? Again, it's just for me, it's allocation of resources, and they aren't doing a very good job of turning the resources in or extending said resources. What do you think?
Well, to Harrison's point, I mean, some of those things, you can explain them. I don't necessarily, I don't always, I don't make justifications just like I don't make excuses, but I will give. And Harrison just laid that out. Both of those scenarios. I more so in the Powell situation, I think you should have gotten something for him. That's probably that's why I'm always in favor of trading a guy a year early rather than a year late. Like if the actual offers were only multiple second round picks and you weren't comfortable with that, then that means that you waited too long. But it kind of is what it is. But in turn, but the whole Jim Buss versus Mitch Kupchak thing, I smiled when you guys were talking about it because it really does come across. It's it's Mitch spinning the wheels and wheeling and dealing and doing what he does when things go wrong. Look, I woke up this morning right when I was getting out of bed, I stubbed my toe and I screamed out, "Jim, why'd you do this, Jim?" I mean seriously, it really does sometimes come across that way with folks. Look. If you're going to get credit, you're also going to get some of the blame, and Mitch knows that. Mitch is every bit as culpable as any other GM would be. Regardless of whether people think that Jim Buss is some evil troll that lives under a bridge. Look, you don't see them talking very much, or coming public with things very often. It would not surprise me if they were very active, if not, just at this deadline, but just specifically, throughout the off season. I really do expect them to bring in, I expect a massive influx of not just talent, but guys that they can really build around, moving forward.
Yeah, I obviously here in Vegas, and I've been doing Vegas things. I woke up with a hangover this morning, and I blame Jim. It's all Jim's fault.
Jim poured that drink.
All right, so last question here. I got this on my drive out here from Clive Wesker at Philly PC88. He kind of to the point we were just alluding to there. He wants to talk about any potential lack of effectiveness up at the top levels between Jim and Mitch, and I'm trying to find the exact word he's using here, but he's talking about disaster at that level. I don't think it's quite at that point yet. What do you think, Jabari?
I don't think it's necessarily a doomsday scenario, but I do think that there are legitimate questions that can be asked about kind of like the decision making that's taking place up top, namely and anybody that's listened to sports radio around Southern California and even throughout the nation has seen the mentions of are Jeannie Buss and Jim Buss on the same page. What exactly is the power dynamic? More so than anything else, and not necessarily for the public's, well-being, but just, for the sake of the franchise, they all have to be on the same page. I don't care whomever is going to carry the big stick or whatever the case. That doesn't matter to me. It's just as long as it's established and everybody is, is acting accordingly, and acting along the same plan. So no, I don't think it's the end of the world, but I do think that I can see the situation that there still seems to be a split in terms of in terms of what is the best idea for the organization moving forward.
And I mean, he uses a word. I found the exact word, but he talks about chaos within the front office. I would just say it's a lapse in communication occasionally. What do you think, Harrison? Are Jeannie and Jim fighting openly, weekly, in their front office?
I can't see that. They both seem to be successful enough that they understand kind of where to air their grievances and things like. So if you're asking me, like, are they showing up to the Lakers offices and like full on like verbal disagreement? I don't think that's what's happening. It doesn't seem like they see eye to eye. That's like, I don't think that's like any breaking news. But the franchise is like, all this stuff that went wrong, like, they didn't tear Kobe's Achilles. Like, they didn't, like, that's not their fault. I'm trying to think of, like, all the injuries, like, they didn't break Randall's leg. Like, all this, like, misfortune and stuff that's happened, they aren't blameless in, like, the Lakers' struggles, but they also aren't, like, them fighting is not the sole blame for it either. In my opinion.
I always kind of laugh a little bit when people talk about how terrible the front office has been, but I didn't hear anybody complaining when the Steve Nash trade went through.
Exactly.
I didn't hear a single word about that. Now
No,
which we're playing the result obviously, but when it went through, I remember Chris Sheridan went on his wrote that the Lakers could be the greatest team ever, you know, and you know, things just didn't pan out. I mean, the Kupchak and Buss both traded for Chris Paul, and it wasn't their fault that the trade got vetoed in the weirdest however things transpired there. That wasn't their fault. I mean, I I pumped the brakes a little bit. I think he deserves some criticism, obviously. Anytime
yeah.
the team falls to the point that they are right now, you have to look around and find somebody accountable for it. But I also hesitate to say that there's utter chaos in the front office right now. Now, the Byron Scott hiring, it's either the worst or greatest hire in the history of mankind. Because if they hired him thinking that he's going to be the tank master in general that he's been, I mean, that's a level of brilliance I aspire to.
They had to know, right? That they interviewed him 8 times. Like, there's no way that, like, it was like 8 times, right? Like, there's no way that. I just can't believe that they hired Byron with the intent that he was going to lead this team, like, to the playoffs this year. Like, there's no. I just can't see that.
Look, I don't think anybody went into this season honestly and really looked at it and said like, yeah, this is, hey, you know what, championship written all over it. Nobody did. You know, they may have signed a couple big names or brought in a couple big names in Carlos Boozer, or I guess relatively big names or noteworthy names in Carlos Boozer and Jeremy Lin and some of those other guys. But nobody went into this thinking that. And Byron Scott himself, whether it was on the like the 5th interview or like the 8th interview or whatever it is, he had to have understood the circumstances as well. Yeah, look. Appearances are one thing, or what they want to sell is one thing. What we see on the court and what we all saw going in is a completely other thing.
Yeah, and go ahead.
It just seemed like their strategy this offseason was just bring in guys that fans had heard, like the casual fan had heard of, like you mentioned with the Lynn and the Boozer thing, and then even Byron Scott, like the older generation, like they remember. Most fans, that they know that he was a coach, they know that he played for the Lakers and he won titles with them. It gets Magic to, well, I mean, I think they hoped a little bit it would get Magic to stop criticizing Jim Buss like out in the open, but that didn't exactly pan out. Worked for half the season, but I would agree with you 100%, Jabari. I think that it just seemed like they were just trying to bring in guys that the casual fan had heard of, so that they would sign up for tickets or not buy into the whole the Lakers are tanking sentiment.
And to your guys' point, and to their credit to a certain extent, while the Lakers are undoubtedly one of the worst teams I've ever seen on an NBA roster, the games this season have been semi-exciting at times, right? I mean, they had was a double overtime game with the Bulls. They had a close game with Cleveland, and obviously rooting for the tank has made the season a lot more exciting in and of itself. But I just throw this season away. You move on. There's going to be a season next year that will probably feature a really fun team to watch. I could totally see a top 5 draft pick, Julius Randle coming back, Kobe coming back, a potential free agent, and you go on from there. So I guess the last thing the last thing before we get going, my favorite question to ask, Jabari, you've been a lifelong Laker fan. What is your favorite Laker moment? We'll head out on this.
Wow. I've had a lot of moments. I was fortunate enough to watch and enjoy the Showtime Lakers, especially the back, the back end of them. Obviously I was there up close and personal during the Shaq and Kobe, days. I watched a lot of those games at Staples. I was very fortunate back then. Whew. It's probably 87 finals, honestly, 87 finals. Right after they won, I can tell you, I was running up and down, like running up and down the street in front of my house. I lived at that point, obviously with my parents for those that are out here in the San Fernando Valley in Tarzana. I was running up and down Tampa at Boulevard, like a madman. And then I think when I came inside, I was pouring. I was pouring what I considered drinks, but it was like Diet Pepsi or something like that, in celebration. So yeah, after their their win in '87, that was probably my biggest memory.
Yeah, I was 1 year old at the time, so I don't remember that. I'd say that Robert Ory shot against the Kings.
Wow.
That. Hey, obviously, winning the titles and all that stuff was fun. Ron Artest shot to beat the Celtics was fun. But that shot Robert Ory hit against the Kings, whom I hated so passionately, that was a lot of fun. Jabari, I'd like to thank you for hopping on with us today. It was always you're welcome anytime. You can carve out some time in your schedule for us. Harrison, thank you for jumping on with us on late notice. And you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Go Tank.
Yeah. All right, you as well. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you.